As someone currently on their second period of fun employment, I think my relationship with money is one that has been important in the fact that I'm even able to do this fun employment period. So it's funny because this is my second fun employment, and actually I have less money right now in terms of like how much I've saved up for and how much I can go without working compared to the first time I was fun employed. So it's interesting to me because the amount of money is different, but the amount of money is lesser now than I had for my fun employment period the last time. But my mindset is also different in that even though I have less now, I somehow feel less less anxious and less uneasy and pressured than I was last time. So I think first of all, like to even be able to do a fun employment in itself is a bit of a privilege, right? But in a way, I feel like it's also to some extent a privilege that has to be earned. Because there are people who could, I guess, be in my shoes. Like, there are people who earn more than I do. And I think the main difference between people who feel like they can't have a fun employment year, like based on the people that I interacted with, is really the feeling of like not feeling safe, or not, maybe safe is like a bit too strong for a word, but not even feeling comfortable or secure enough to not have enough. So I'm putting this enough in quotation marks because I don't think this enough in most people's definition is their true calibrated level of enough. I think for a lot of people, and I was one of them too, for a long time I didn't really know what enough looked like for me. And when I didn't have a definition, like a personal definition of enough, it was very easy, convenient to look towards society or look towards what people typically think was enough. So like the idea of having a job that gives you a steady income, the idea of, like being able to spend money comfortably without checking your bank account, for example. Like I'm not saying any of these are not good indicators of enough, but what I'm saying is like it takes a bit of knowing yourself, a bit of like getting to know yourself to know whether these are your own personal indications of enough. And what I found for myself is that my personal definition of enough is, it was at one point having a stable, like a steady incoming like salary. And then with my first fun employment year, I had a really, really hard time trying to figure out like how to let go of that belief, because without going into what prompted the fun employment, the monetary aspect of it was interesting because I don't think during that period of time I thought I grew that much in terms of like my relationship with my personal finance. But the fact that right now I'm in my second fun employment period and I have less money and I feel more okay about it than I did in my first fun employment period says something about how much I've grown. In the fact that it's not really the exact amount that I have in my bank account that I can spend, but how I feel about that amount of money. And so therein lies that personal definition of enough, right? Like, what is enough? And I think for me, enough is not specifically tied to like any singular monetary value. And also, I apologize if the audio for this is going to be very bad because, first of all, it's really windy, and also there's a lot of background sounds. But I'll do my best to edit this in post to see whether it will be like at least reasonable to listen to. But anyway, I'm gonna move on, because it's gonna rain if I don't. So, I think earlier on, in my adult life, I viewed enough as needing like a lot more in monetary value than I do now. And like, I think without doing any personal soul searching, my definition of enough at one point is probably closer to what I would consider rich for myself now. Like, I needed at that point a lot more money to feel secure about what I can or cannot do with life. And like, I don't know if this feels very abstract because I'm not talking about it in any specific terms, but like, would it help to talk about it in specific terms? So very practical things that I did to figure out how much money was enough was like, first of all, tracking my expenses. Second of all, doing some trend analysis of my expenses and figuring out what I enjoyed spending money on and what I didn't enjoy spending money on, and trying to reduce the bits that I didn't enjoy spending money on. Finding out how I can increase my enjoyment of spending money in areas that I like, which I think I've mentioned before. I enjoy spending money eating out with my friends. So like, how do I, let's say if I have a limited amount of money, how do budget, right? Like, how do I do more of that by using the same amount of money, for example, without sacrificing the quality of the time? So like, those are all things that I could personally calibrate and work on. And yeah, so like, a lot of things actually also don't particularly require money, but sometimes they require time. So like, often time and money are trade-offs in each other. Like, you can use money to buy time and you can use time to buy money. I think that's one of the very common ways money and time are related in this world. And in a way, to have enough for me is to also have enough time. So I don't want to sacrifice the time that I have to own more money necessarily, because sometimes that trade-off is not worth it. So I guess the definition of enough always changes. Like, it's not a static answer. The definition of enough will change over time for me. And like, right now I have enough money to be able to live without working for 1 or 2 months at least, comfortably, comfortable by my standards. And man, it's getting really sunny. And like, what I've been doing recently is like, whenever I feel anxiety or fears come up about like, oh, I need to start working again, because this money I have will run out in like 1 or 2 months time. And like, I really gotta put in effort to stop myself and be like, wait a minute. it's gonna run out in 1 to 2 months time, right? Like it's not yet 1 to 2 months time right now. So like in this particular moment, can I just leave that aside and like let go of that feeling of like needing to get more money before I run out? Can I just like let go of that and figure out what I really want to do right now in this particular moment? And that's related to something I've also been thinking about lately, as in particular the last 2 or 3 days, about living life. Like, how do I actually want to live? And right now I'm presented with this honestly quite privileged choice of being able to really decide that for myself, like personally, because I currently have the luxury of time, right? Even if it's 1 to 2 months. And actually 1 to 2 months is a lot of time actually. Because a lot of people actually go through life without even having this 1 to 2 months to really have the option to be like, let me sit down and just do whatever I want. Because even if you physically have that time, I think a lot of deconditioning needs to take place for most of us to be able to really like relax into feeling comfortable with not having a steady income coming in like every month. For a lot of us who do salaried work, it's uncomfortable to not have money coming in every month, and that is something that takes time to decondition and get used to and get comfortable with. Like, it took, like, I wasn't in that comfortable position in like the 11 to 12 months that I was funemployed the first time, and I'm still not like 100% comfortable with it. Like, there are moments that I suddenly get this overwhelming fear of like, I need to suddenly quickly get a job and like, you know, stop myself of this madness of like not working. And then I'm like, but just like pause for a minute, right? Like, do I really, like, is it really that urgent that I have to do it now? Like, can't I wait for 1 month? And yeah, the fact that it still comes up means, you know, it's really a very deep deconditioning process. But I think this idea of enough and this coexist at the same time with my exploration of what I really want to do with my life, what it really means for me to live, like day to day, moment to moment. What am I doing? What do I really want to do? And sometimes, like, after, because it's a bit difficult sometimes to observe myself in the moment, but like at the end of the day, when I look back at what I've done for that day, like, do I feel satisfied with how I've spent my time? Do I feel satisfied with what I've done or what I've not done? Do I feel comfortable with the fact that I've not done anything of economic value, let's say, of like practical, real world, productive importance, let's say? And these are all questions that I don't have answers to, but I think they are all interesting and important questions that I would like to keep exploring for myself. So for now, I'm gonna just somewhat sum up and say, like, for me, I think what I really want out of life is to be able to know what is enough for me and to have enough based on my definition of enough. And on the outside, it's not gonna look like other people's definition of like what society defines as enough necessarily, because it's not gonna look like, objectively, I'm probably not gonna be rich by society's standards. And also objectively, the fact that I'm able to do this means I'm not poor and I'm not broke, because I don't immediately need an income to sustain my lifestyle or my living. So like I'm neither ends of the extremes, right? But like between those two extremes there is a very wide variance of what it means to have enough. And through my own experience of my 2 fun employment years, I've also, not years, but I mean this second period has not been a year, it's been a month. But through my 2 fun employment periods, my definition of enough for myself has also changed. And my relationship to that enough has also changed to be one that is more comfortable, although I'm not like 100% there yet. So I think I don't have any answers right now, not even for myself. But I feel like the fact that I've even asked the question is already a step in a very good direction, because it's a question that a lot of people maybe not necessarily don't think to ask themselves, but don't dare to ask themselves because they are afraid of their answers. Even though actually if you sit with it, you might find that your answers are not as scary, like they're not as scary as you might think compared to the circumstances that you personally are in right now. So like something that I've often told people who, like when we talk about my fun employment periods, is like when I was working at an office job, my colleagues didn't really like their jobs, and I mean I didn't really either. And very often they'll talk about wanting to win the lottery so that they can stop working. And then it's during that period of time that I was already like saving to be able to have my first fun employment period. And a lot of them were like when I raised the question to them, like, why don't you think about saving so that you can actually, be away from this job for a period of time, like even if you just take like a sabbatical, a longer period of like no pay leave or something like that. But it was very daunting to them, and what they would sometimes say would be like, I like the idea in theory, but it scares me. Like for example, I can't give up my bags, or I can't give up my vacation to Europe twice every year, once every year, whatever frequency they go to. I can't give up my vacations with my family. I can't give up my children's tuition. I can't give up my and by tuition I mean like extracurricular kind of tuition, like not just regular school fees. And to me it's kind of like there's nothing in particular that it's like, there's nothing wrong with spending on any of those things in particular, but like, do you really need all of them? Do they really bring you as much joy as maybe a short period in which you are not working and you get to really figure out what you want out of life? Like, by not choosing, in a way, you have also sort of opted into that default choice of like, you're just gonna continue working and continue feeling, to these people, right, that I'm talking about, like continue feeling unhappy with the circumstances that you're in, and not daring to take the extra, maybe initially painful step to figuring out what's enough for you, and whether there are steps that you can take to making that enough work for you, even if it's for a short period of time. So like, ultimately it's all your own personal choice. But what I want to say but didn't say to my colleagues at the time is like, you have made a choice by not by choosing not to try a fun employment period like I have. Like, don't, like, I'm not saying it's a wrong choice, but I'm saying like, don't pretend like you haven't by the act of like not making a particular choice, don't pretend like you have not made or like fallen into the default choice of like just continuing to work, like what is typical of society, right? And like, there's nothing wrong with that, but if that is what you have chosen, like, maybe make your life easier by accepting that that is your choice rather than complaining about the fact that you hate your work every single day. Like, yeah. So anyway, I think that's about what I have to say on this today. There's been so many people walking around me, so I really hope that I wasn't too distracted during most of this video. Alright, that's all for today. Bye.